So it's been a while since I've done one of these My Hero Academia reviews, but I had to do a review for this season finale right here. This will be the final episode of My Hero for a while, but right about here is where we are going to transition into one of my favorite arcs in all of manga or anime. These characters that are being introduced are so good. And the stuff that will come very soon is so damn good that I had to just talk about this episode, talk about a few of the characters, and then look forward to season 4, which is going to be, for me, the high point so far of the My Hero series. Now, in the last episode, I believe it was episode 62, several new characters were introduced. The upcoming villain Overhaul was briefly shown, as well as the big three, who are basically the top 3 students at UA. They are the strongest, and as Eraserhead says, they are the closest to being actual pros in UA. Now, these characters are going to be central, like key components in season 4. Particularly, obviously, we know Overhaul, he's coming up, and then, of course, we have got to talk about Mirio. Now, this episode opens up with kind of, a little bit of an introduction of the big three. You can see that they're all, really rather goofy. It's a very anime introduction, right? Seeing, these goofy characters. The first thing we hear about them is, they are the baddest motherfuckers around. And then instantly they start talking and they're all goofy, right? That's just such an anime thing. So, basically, they're brought in to explain to the class about the upcoming internships that these students are supposed to be going on. And Mirio deems it a little bit better than explaining it to show the students of Class 1A, experience. He doesn't want to really talk about the experience that you would get from the internship. He wants to show it. So it moves over to the gym, and Mirio is actually going to fight the entire class by himself. Now, this scene was incredible. I gotta say, My Hero, one thing about My Hero that I really love, particularly now that I am caught up with the manga, is just how, when you're reading it, you see these certain scenes that, oh my god, I can't wait to see this actually, animated, in movement. And, the My Hero anime, every single big moment, the, Deku versus Muscular fight, any, big scene like that, the animation, that shit always looks so good. It's always just so smooth, so fluid. I think that's one reason My Hero just continues to carry so much hype with it, is that all of these big moments are just perfectly well done. Many other anime, you'll hear people, it's like, oh, I was really waiting for this fight, and then the anime, it kind of dragged, it had some filler, there wasn't the top tier animation throughout it. Many animes have this problem, but My Hero, not even close. Anytime, it's time to really have, good stuff go down, oh boy, does My Hero deliver. Now, we see Mirio in action here. Now, I'm sure a lot of people, if you have not read the manga, lately, the My Hero fandom has been very hype for, I'm seeing a lot more hype right now for Mirio. And, if you guys watch the episode, you would certainly see why, as he just dusts Class 1A. No problem. He just eviscerates them. That's what everyone is excited for, and me too. Mirio, he is just a fantastic character, and I really like the way he sort of progresses, throughout what is going to be season 4. Me personally, I love Overhaul, but we don't get to see very much of Overhaul yet. They're basically saving him, for next season. We get here's the thing. In this episode, we see, what Mirio's about. Mirio, he goes through a whole explanation of his quirk. We actually see him battle Deku. But, Overhaul, in these 2 episodes, we've only seen him, spit out a couple lines of dialogue. That's the way it was in the manga too, but basically where this episode cuts off, like, next season begins, it's going to be the overhaul show, that first episode. So definitely looking forward to that. Now, Mirio uses his quirk to basically annihilate half of Class 1A, and Eraserhead is watching it along with Todoroki. Todoroki's not participating because, of course, he did not get his provisional license. And then Bakugo, of course, is still on the detention, or the suspension, whatever you want to call it. So he's not actually participating in that. Now, Eraserhead mentions to Todoroki that Mirio, he says, including pros, Mirio is the closest to being number 1. So, this is the post-All Might world. So, for me, I sort of hear Eraserhead, and, seeing Mirio's feats here, I'm seeing Eraserhead basically say, you got All Might, and then the homie Mirio is right there, ready to dominate. Now, I'm not really too sure, where Eraserhead is putting Endeavor in there, because obviously, after All Might's retirement, Endeavor is now the number 1 hero, but we can see Mirio is not one to be trifled with, because when he activates his quirk, he basically, think of the Vision from Marvel Comics, or he's, Obito from Naruto. But the thing about it that is explained in My Hero is that as Mirio activates his quirk, he can't see because everything completely, passes through him, phases through him, including, just the light. The light passes through his retinas, the sound goes through him, so he's completely deaf, blind, and he just has a sensation of falling. So the whole thing with Mirio's character, as it's sort of explained by another of the big 3, Amici, I think is how you say his name. His hero name, Sun Eater. That's a much easier way for me to refer to him. But, they kind of all explain, sort of what Mirio has had to go through. That, he's not invincible because he has, the best quirk of all time, right? It's very thoroughly explained that Mirio has built himself to this level of greatness, to where he's able to sort of go through Class 1A, completely dissect them all. One of the reasons is experience, which is something that Mirio wants to show the students of Class 1A. Through all of his, fighting and training and everything, he's learned, to predict what opponents are going to do, which allows him to make, mincemeat out of Class 1A. Now, Mirio is able to basically phase through everything, including attacks, but one of the interesting things that My Hero does with this quirk is that, whereas, Obito and Naruto, right, he'll activate his power, but he's still standing on the ground, people just will attack and they'll go through him, but the thing for Mirio is that if he activates his quirk throughout his entire body, he will actually sink into the ground, and then if he releases his quirk, basically, it's explained that the mass can't go on top of the mass, so he gets forcibly ejected from the ground. So if you don't know what to look for, it seems as though he's warping all over the place, which is why the students of 1A at first are like, yo, he's invincible. He's phasing through our attacks and then warping to us. Does he have 2 quirks? Has he got 3? What is going on? But it is explained that this is just Mirio. He has trained to such a degree to where when he activates his quirk, he's angling his body. He's got his body moving in such a way to where he will pop up at any angle, the exact angle he wants to attack his opponent. So the impression is really given that he has spent countless hours training and sort of improving upon his quirk. Now, it does finish up with his fighting against the class. He completely disintegrates Deku. No one is even able to touch Mirio. That's basically just how that goes down. We do get the explanation of his quirk, which is... I like it, because it's a very cool way to set up a character who, Mirio is essentially invincible. But, it's not like he wasn't just born like that. He worked to get it, which really, I think, endears Mirio to the audience. Like, I've never heard someone say they don't like Mirio, or like, keep him, like, or, nah, chief, that Mirio ain't it. No one has ever said that shit. Mirio is universally beloved, and, as season 4 comes eventually, whenever it does, the people are just gonna love him more and more. He's fantastic. Now, after Mirio dusts Class 1A, he then kind of gives a speech and explains, like, explaining the negatives behind his quirk, how he can't see, he can't hear. He had to, use experience. He had to train and turn that into power so he was able to become what he is. So, like, the class gets a big sort of, like, it's a very good speech for them to hear, right? Like they're ready. Deku, in particular, we see is kind of just like, he's in awe of Mirio, and that's the way it should be. Now, that's pretty much the entire episode is, this whole scene, Mirio kind of beating them up at the gym. Again, the animation is fantastic as Mirio is just sort of bobbing and weaving all over the place, taking them down. We do get a quick shot of the big three afterwards, in which Mirio explains that he was impressed by Deku because during Mirio's final attack, Deku accurately predicted where Mirio was going to attack from, so that impressed Mirio. After this, Deku calls up Gran Torino because he wants to, prepare for his internship. At which point, Gran Torino basically tells him, nah, bruh, you can go over to your master, All Might, and see if he can't introduce you to his sidekick. And then that leads us to the final scene of Season 3, which is where we see Overhaul, who is a character that was introduced in last week's episode, is brought to the League of Villains by Twice. If you guys remember in last week's episode, Overhaul, was sort of in the middle of some shenanigans. We didn't really get the full gist of what exactly happened, but Twice was there. So presumably afterwards, Twice approaches Overhaul and then, kind of, makes terms or whatever, and now he's bringing him to meet Shigaraki. We also do get another glimpse of 2 unnamed characters. One, of course, has a big resemblance to a character from Hunter x Hunter. I'm sure a lot of y'all will recognize that. Nav, he looks very similar. And then there's also a girl who are, as we can see, they sort of have their eye on Overhaul, right? And then that final scene, Overhaul walks into a warehouse to meet with the League of Villains, and Shigaraki mentions, like, oh, Twice, you brought in a big fish this time. And, yeah. Overhaul, yeah, he a problem, all right. I can't wait for Season 4. Like, Season 3, I think it was very strong at the beginning. With, Deku versus Muscular especially is the best moment of Season 3 for me. And then, the Forest arc is very good, building up to All Might versus All for One. But I'm really not so much of a fan of the provisional license exam. A lot of the school stuff for me is beginning to get a little tired in My Hero. That's the only thing, hopefully moving forward, we can kind of step away from that, right? And just get into, like, the actual story. But Season 4, with Overhaul, the big three, Mirio, Deku, the 2 unnamed characters that we saw at the end of this episode, a lot of really cool stuff goes down next year. So I cannot wait to see that. I just wanted to do, just a quick sort of video talking about this episode and expressing my delight and excitement to see Overhaul and Mirio next year. Woo! Let me know what y'all think so far of these 2 characters, and what y'all think might happen in Season 4. I cannot wait.